Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Digital to Dice podcast. I am Dave.
I'm Ron.
And it's episode 80. What do you got, Ron?
It's the Jerry Rice
The Irving
episode.
Fryer Show. Yes, you are correct.
Rice episode.
No, it's
Best NFL player ever.
next to Irving Fryer.
Did you see where Gronk got $10 million?
Did he?
Yeah, he got $10 million to come back for one more year.
I knew he came back while Tampa Bay's loading up. They really are. Wow, good for them.
He signed that yesterday, I think. So good for. There was a point, speaking of Gronkowski, that he claimed. I don't know if this is the case now, that he never spent the principal of any of his NFL football money. He only spent the interest. Now, Gronk is kind of a free spending guy, but if you've got $40 million in the bank, that's still a couple million a year in interest.
Yeah, and you got to figure out some of the endorsements and commercials he's done too. So if he left all his football money in the bank, good for him.
Which would be incredible because Gronk, I think a lot of it, the party attitude for Gronk is just that. And I think he's a smarter guy. So good for him. But yeah, he'll be back for Tampa one more year.
Didn't Brady extend a year?
I don't know if they extended. The original deal was for 2.
Yeah, I think he extended 1 or 2 more years. It's like, I mean, come on, man. One more maybe.
He really expects to play until he's 50.
I mean, 1 more year, 2 max. I mean, I even go out this year. You went to Tampa, you won a Super Bowl. There's nothing else to prove. Even if he wins another Super Bowl in Tampa, that's still not proving anything. Just go out on top. Go out on top. You proved your point. Go out on top.
You don't want to go out the way Peyton Manning did. I mean, yes, Manning won the Super Bowl and got the Budweiser distributorships and is still the poster child of what ESPN and CBS want for an analyst. But his last 2 years, he was throwing passes like I would throw passes.
Yeah, it was tough.
And it's like that's not – I mean, thankfully, he won't be remembered in the Joe Namath in Los Angeles stage of his career, but it was pretty gosh darn close. And no, you don't want to see – you don't – at what point is just one hit too much?
Yeah.
As it is with any football player. And so you're taking someone in their early 40s, and you don't want them to be still suffering at 70 from a hit they took at 43.
Yeah, no, I hear that. Anyway, hey, ways to get a hold of us, digitaltodice.com is our website where we put all of our podcasts over on Spreaker, digitaltodice.com. 978-75-DICE, 978-751-3423 is the Dice line where you can send us a text. Digitaltodice@yahoo.com if you want to send us an email. Over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/digitaltodice. And lastly, if you want to get a cool mug or a mouse pad or something, head over to cafepress.com/digitaltodice and pick up some Digital to Dice merchandise if you'd like to help support the show. Mm-hmm. Episode 80, Ron. Today we're going to be talking about the Roberto Chiavini games. What are they? We
talked about them a bit, but a while back we interviewed him, and so Roberto was afraid that his English wasn't good enough to be recorded, so we did an email interview, and Dave will ask the questions, and I will answer them, but the answers are indeed Roberto's.
Okay, and so, yeah, we'll tell you where you can find those games and the whole bit as we get into some of that there. First, though, shall we get into what we're playing?
Yes. All right, you hockey fiend, what are you playing?
Hey, first off, I want to reiterate something that we always talk about here on the show is there's no wrong game to play. There's no wrong way to play a game. I've been seeing a lot of people posting on Facebook and Delphi, asking for help on how to clarify something, and I played it this way, played it that way, and some people are giving these people grief about, no, you screwed up. No, just play it your way, and if you make a mistake, you make a mistake. If you're trying to play it 100% by the rules, there's nothing wrong with that either. But there's so many games that I play that I just, there's 1 or 2 things I just don't like, and I change, and it makes the game better for me. And there's games that I don't play that just because I don't play them or Ron don't play them doesn't mean that you can't love them. That can't be your favorite game. So don't let anybody tell you that this game is bad or you should play this game or you should play it this way. Play what you want when you want. Have fun. That's the whole thing. The whole thing about this is having fun.
Right. And, with a lot of rules, they're not always suggestions. You should follow, get to know the game that you're playing. But as Dave said, if there's some modifier that you like to make it your own and take a game that you maybe pull out once or twice into something that you play on a regular basis,
yeah,
it is what it is. And it's your imagination and your world and your universe.
Yeah, no, there's just sometimes that some rules just trip me up in some games, and I'm just like, I need to modify this to make it easier for me. And other times, it brings the game to a grinding halt, and so I'll make a modification so I can get the game to flow, and I have more fun with that. So whatever you want to play, however you want to play it your way. But what have we been playing here? Well, let me see. I've been chipping away at my regular season basketball. 1985-86 Celtics seasons. I went on a 9-game win streak or something like that.
Haven't played Atlanta in a while then, huh?
No, Atlanta beats me every time in that game. And I think I'm getting close to 30 games played. I have to double check right now. Maybe 33, but my record is one off from the actual record.
Your Celtics got fire.
Yeah, which is weird because I think I was 5 wins behind it when I was 11-7. And I was like, wow, this replay is going sour. I'm rolling bad. And next thing you know, I look up and now whatever their actual record was at that point in the season, I'm one difference. I think I have one less win. So I'm 24-9 instead of 25-8 or whatever it is. It's really close. It's really close.
They went 40-1 at home.
I've already lost 2 at home.
Which means that they were essentially a 500 team away from the Garden.
Yeah.
Or Hartford Providence, because they played a couple of games. They played 3 outside the Garden, and I forget how they split. But that's hard to believe, a team that was so good. And I think that was the best Celtics team of that era. It was the first year that McHale was a starter. That they were a 500 team on the road.
Yeah. Yeah, their road record was not that good. So I've been playing some of that. I'm just doing basic mode in that, by the way. I'm not keeping.
You're not doing any of the stats.
I'm not keeping the stats.
But to be honest, the stats are window dressing. So if you're playing basic, it really shouldn't matter. The results are going to be results.
The final score, the final score is going to not change. But if you want to keep stats, you can keep stats. And I'm not even using the close game factor that's in there, that's built in, which probably would have got me a couple of more wins. But this particular project, I just wanted to roll some dice and not do a lot of extra thinking, so to speak. I just wanted to kind of roll. And again, maybe if I'd done things a little close game factor or something else, but I mean, I'm just doing the basic mode, and I'm having fun, as we talked about there. And so my record is pretty close to actual. So I've been doing that. I've been doing a lot of work with the Stratomatic Hockey utility on the computer. I've inputted a couple of seasons. I've shot them off to Brian Leahy over at strat-hockey.net, so we can put that on the site so everybody could, download whatever I've created there. And there's a lot of stuff on that site for the Strat utility, and Strat in general, by the way. I just happen to like to use the utility. So I think I have 70-71 completed, and I also did 75-76. Somehow, Ron, I stumbled on my Strat cards, and I had 75-76. I didn't realize it. And so
I have it for the computer, yeah.
So I ended up printing out all the teams and cutting them out, and then I said, no, I'm going to put it in the utility. So I put all the guys in the utility, and I actually did the entire schedule, too. It took me a couple days, but I have that all done. So now if I want to play a game on utility, it's all set to go. So I've been doing some of the Strat stuff with that. Let's see, I picked up my 74-75 Strat PC hockey season, where I'm just kind of bouncing around playing games. I'll sim a couple of weeks, and then I'll play a game and stuff like that. I actually streamed
the last fully healthy year for Orr, reasonably healthy year for Orr, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's why I'm doing that one there. And that's with the expansion scouts and the Capitals and the whole bit. So I played a game that I knew Boston was going to win. I was having a bad day, so I said, I'm just going to kick the feet up and play this. So I played Washington at Boston. That was the next game on the schedule. And Boston smashed them. I don't know if it was 5-1 or 5-2 or something like that. But Orr had 3 assists, I think. And it was just a fun little game to play, being a Bruins fan. And, I tend to play those blowout games. I know some people would rather play the best against the best, but I like playing the yucky teams, as you know me. So I've been back to that. Yep.
I read over Hockey Forums. I'm not a member over there, but I read over there. They have a very good history section, by the way. And one of the questions that came up was, what would have been the Bruins deal or the Rangers deal if the Park Rattel Esposito trade doesn't happen. Now, that came after Bobby Orr was lost to the year and pretty much was lost to the Bruins forever at that point, right?
He actually
10 games into 75, 76.
I looked it out. He gutted it out till right around Thanksgiving of 75. So the Esposito trade was before that because Orr was still on the team playing. So Orr played with Puck. I think they said 10 games they played. Okay.
And so, what would have mattered? Because what quite a few people forget was the Bruins actually made the finals twice after that trade. In 77 and 78. Montreal swept them in 77. The Bruins took Montreal to 6 in 78. That Esposito was on the decline, that a lot of his numbers the last couple of years in Boston were power play enhanced. And that really, was Sinden your GM then?
Probably.
I think they kicked him upstairs after he was, because Don Cherry was the coach. That it was a very shrewd trade by Boston.
But keep in mind, though, Esposito took the Rangers to the finals in
79.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Bruins went twice, and then the Rangers went. So
right, but yeah, it was a good thread. That's actually one of the better sports history boards. It doesn't get into a lot of silly discussion, and a lot of those boards can get into silly discussion. But yeah, so. That was a fascinating read.
Yeah. So I enjoyed the 74-75 season, Orr's last good year, expansion teams joining and the whole bit. So I played that. I think I'll probably pick up 75-76 for that season on the PC at some point. But I can play it on the utility with the cards if I want to. And me and you and I sat the other night, and this
was fun,
as I was putting in the 75 season, you went to that newspapers.com thing that you belong to, and we were reading some of the articles written about the game. So I was like, wow, look at this game here. This is the Seals beating the Rangers. And you found the article and we read what happened. And then somebody beat Boston. The Kings beat Boston at home. And we read that article. That was really fun going back and reading like what happened,
One of those was written by Will McDonough, of all people, who I never would associate with hockey. One of the things that struck me, and of course, this is the era before computers and widespread, and not every game was televised, especially with the Bruins. I don't think they televised any home games for a long time, did they?
I think they did most of their home games. I do.
Home games or road games? Because I know that.
Well, TV30 had the road games. I remember watching a lot of hockey games. I don't remember exactly, but I thought they
was just how descriptive the writers were on goals. Now, for baseball, where everything kind of happens at a slow, plodding pace, and even football, where you have a play every 40 seconds or so, you can kind of, if someone breaks a tackle or someone, strokes a slider in the gap to hit the wall, I mean, you're going to recognize that. But the descriptions of how goals were scored by the writers in a sport that is constantly moving, I thought was pretty fantastic.
Yeah, you were describing some of those there, and I was like, wow, that was pretty good. So we had a fun night. We probably spent an hour as I was putting in the schedule, and I was like, look up this game. Look at this game, because there was so many games. And I didn't realize that Sanderson and Eddie Johnston and
St. Louis,
maybe Don Ori playing with the Blues. So I was like, boy, that'd be a fun game, a homecoming for some Bruins. There was a couple of upsets in there.
You sent me some goalie card and said, here's your goalie for your team.
Oh, yeah, that's how it started. Yeah,
and I said, yeah, you'd still lose. And we found through process of elimination that Buffalo?
Yeah, I think that was Bromley for Buffalo, and he played
Mark Bromley, yep.
They played St. Louis, I think it was, right?
Yeah, St. Louis, and so we found it, and there was a picture of Bromley getting tangled up in one of his defensemen. He still had, I think, close to 27 saves that night. But yeah, that was a fun.
But
way
he gave up. He played he was carded for one game, because when I looked at his card, I said, Ron, we got to find this game. He was carded for one game. He gave up 7 goals in that one game, and his card was, I think everything was a goal on his card except for there was one that was like a save and a face-off maybe, but it was a brutal card to have. Yeah. So I says, I need to play that game with that card. So I cherry-picked like 10 or 15 games in the 75-76 seasons in Strat that I thought would be fun, and we actually looked them up that night and kind of got a backstory of what happened. So So that was fun to do. And obviously, I've been playing some more Shootout. I fired up my 1970-71 season. I hemmed and hawed what I'm going to do. Finally, I just started playing. And so I began that season. I think I've played 2 or 3 days. And I started putting the results into the Strat Hockey utility. So I'll have some decent stats there. It does take a bit. And, there's no forgiving in that Strat Hockey utility. Once you hit the end game button.
You did a video on that too, right?
Yeah, I did a video on that. So keep in mind, you can enter the stats that if you screw up, you can't fix it. You got to cancel and go back in. But once you hit the end game button, it saves and there's no fixing it. So, I take a long time when I put the stats in. I go over it and make sure, and I've caught some mistakes, so I'm glad I'm taking my time. But, something wrong? This is my first real big, long project I've just begun.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a very different attitude about this than my one-offs. And I've decided I'm not rushing this. I'm not in any hurry. I know this is going to be months, if not a year. Now, Shootout plays pretty quick, but now that I'm keeping all the stats and the penalties and I'm trying to keep everything, the games are taking me a little bit longer than 15 to 20 minutes because I'm really digging in. You know what I mean? I'm really getting those stats and the whole bit, whereas before I'd just play a game and be done in 10, 15 minutes and talk about it. But you talk about storylines, and I'm only, like I say, a handful of maybe 8 or 10 games into the season total, and I can see storylines starting to build after one game. Buffalo, Vancouver, that's their expansion year, and Vancouver won at home. I think they won at home, and then Buffalo lost, or vice versa. But so the expansion teams are off and running, and one did well and one didn't, and so that's a thing. Gump Worsley in a game with Minnesota beat the Flyers, and I think the Flyers they didn't go to the finals of that year. That was 74, but the Flyers were an up and coming team, and in Philadelphia, Gump Worsley gets a win, so that was kind of fun. California had a they're 0-2. But they did have a penalty shot goal. I've never had a penalty shot successful goal in Shootout before, and I had one. Norm Ferguson got the goal against Detroit. So storylines are building. I'm having fun. And I think what I'm going to do is, as I continue on, is before I play the games, I'm going to go back and look and kind of develop a storyline for each game where I can say, hey, look, the Seals are on a 4-game losing streak. Now they're finally back at home. Or, Bobby Orr's got a 4-game scoring streak or an assist streak or something. So it's going to be fun to kind of follow along, and I'm really going to take my time with this and enjoy this, and I have so far. But like you say, see how it is in a few months when I'm playing, game 200. Do I still feel the same way? I don't know. But right now I'm excited about it. And why I think I'll be okay with this is because this is basically what I did a couple years ago when myself and a few other people, we backlogged or we inputted 20 years of stats, game by game,
part of that crew.
Goal by goal. Yeah, you even helped out too into my hockey league that I run. And so if you go back, I have 20 years of stats that I can go back and look at because we went back and did every single game, every goal, every assist. And yes, and it took 2.5, 3 years to do this. It took a long time, but we did it. And so I look at that and say, well, if I can do that project, I can take my time and do this. And there's no end in sight that I need for this. I don't need to hurry this. So I'm really excited to jump onto a full season using Shootout hockey. And interested to see, like I said, I got a lot of penalties so far. The 70s were full of penalties. So I got some teams that will pick up 15, 20 minutes of penalties a night. And again, how Shootout does penalties is kind of like an overall. You really can't look at that one game and say, well, that's really what happened in that one game. It's more like over the course of a season that will fill in nicely, so to speak. So that's what I've been playing. Mostly hockey, a little bit of basketball. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I've played. No, I need to get back to the Celtics on the PC Replay basketball. I think I did stream one of those the other day. But, I think for the most part, that's what I've been doing. What have you been playing?
Well, let's see. Baseball, of course. All the 49 replays on vacation this week. Did some basketball for the first time in a while. Played someone had asked me to do the UVM Syracuse game for the 2005 NCAAs. And the strength of a good game is that although the reality of what happened was different from this, as Syracuse beat UVM, you can see where at the end I was controlling UVM, where they were getting more and more desperate. And for me, that's what a smaller conference college would do against one of the, Syracuse was in the Big East at the time, what they would try to do to get even. At one point in the second half, UVM was down by 4. I think they got down by as many as 10. I think it was a 7-point game. But it just kind of had that feel of the underdog trying to force something to happen to change their fortune. And it didn't. It didn't. Reality hits, in the America East, which is where Vermont plays, some of the schools aren't as good, and so it's easy to overpower them. But what you have when you go into a team with depth.
And this was Action PC basketball, right?
Action PC basketball. What else have I done? You got me set up with the shootout helper, and so I'm going to I started game 1 last night of the Wales, 4 teams tournament. 1 from each of the 4 divisions in the 80s, either most Stanley Cups or most division titles. And so it's the Islanders who won 4 in the 80s, the Canadians who won more division titles than the Bruins. I honestly wasn't sure who I was going to go with there, because the Bruins were pretty good throughout the 80s. Edmonton, obviously, in the Smythe, and Chicago by default in the Norris, because let's face it, the Norris was the vast wasteland of hockey.
Although that Norris division is weird, because I've been spending a lot of time on Hockey Reference there, and the Kings are in the Norris, the Canadians are in the Norris. There was so
back in the 70s. Yeah, I'm talking the 80s.
That was weird. Yeah. Now you're playing the greatest teams of the 80s, right?
The greatest team. Well, it's kind of a mishmash of greatest players on each team over the course of the decade.
Okay. It's
not like the 86 Oilers and the 82 Islanders and that. It's
I think it's called the decade set.
It's a decade set. So Bossy and LaFontaine are on the Islanders together.
I see.
And Gretzky's only on Edmonton, and the Blackhawks are all over the place. So last night played game 1 on the island between the Habs and the Islanders. Now I'm kind of neutral in this series because I like both teams. And the Islanders had Patrick Waugh's lunch. Oof. They had 14 scoring chances and scored on 8, and Mike Bossy had 5 goals.
Oh, man.
Oh, my goodness. And Montreal only had 4 scoring chances the entire game. Like, by the time that they got their last one in the third period, who cares? You've lost this one.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do? You got to bench Patrick Waugh? No, you're never going to bench Patrick Waugh. And the last time Patrick Waugh gave up that many goals, he went to Ronald Corey and said, "Trade me, get me out of Montreal."
I watched that, yeah.
Against the Red Wings, and Denver said, "Oh, we'll be eternally grateful for our stupidity." We didn't even get a dead Marsh out of that deal. I really think it was a bucket of warm spit and some bubble gum.
But it's good bubble gum. It was bubblicious. It was really good.
I would have even taken the corpse of the Stasny brothers in that trade, even if they couldn't skate anymore. Maybe given anyway. So we'll do that, and so I'll play a game 1 in Chicago and Edmonton. What else have I been doing? So some hockey, some baseball, some basketball, a little bit of everything.
Nice. Yeah, it's fun to break up some of your long plays with some other games and just.
We'll be back to the baseball primarily next week. We've been going 13 weeks straight, and I made the playlist for it. Like, oh, you've done 35 games, so maybe you should for that. So, I drove a car.
Oh, yes. Please go into detail about this. This was great.
Okay. A generous benefactor gave me a nice tip, and so I spent some of that money on Assetto Corsa, which is an older racing game. There's a couple very good racing games out there. iRacing, but that's more of a you race against other people, and I'm just going to ruin too many people's days if I'm on the.
Now this is an actual racing. This is not simulator. Cards and dice. This is not a management game. This is you steering the car, like like a typical console game.
This is a game that you should have a wheel for. A wheel and pedals. That's the way to get the most use out of it. And so I figured out how to configure my mouse to be it. So the left button is the accelerator, the right button is the brake, and I steer with my lip on the touchpad. And my goodness, for some of those cars, you need to have very good control to get that because you're going at 140, 150 miles an hour, and this game is a road course game, and so it's not like Daytona, and even though you can download those, where you're just going over the NASCAR ovals.
That's a difficult game too. That's really more of a good simulation type game. See, I don't even have that. I play the arcadier versions of racing games, so I can crash and bang and
I shut the damage off in an automatic transition. I mean, let's not pretend that I'm actually,
So you didn't have Emily shifting gears for you?
No, the cat was not, my co-pilot. Ow! What? Ow! And so I took for the video, I took 3 cars around Monza, the 1966 layout. So if you're familiar with Formula One, Monza is the kind of the birthplace of Ferrari. And so it's built for speed, and there's lots of chicanes because if you get those cars going too fast and they crash, it tends to seriously injure or kill drivers, which is not funny. And so, but in the 60s, we didn't worry about safety as much. We worried about speed. So Monza had the only oval in Europe, a high-banked oval. And then you go onto a straight, onto a long straight, and then into some sharp hairpin turns and that. So I took the Lotus, the 1967 Lotus, which was basically a flaming gas tank on wheels, and took that around. I took the Mazda MX-5, which is a good beginning race car, and then I took a Formula 3 or Formula 4 car, and that steered the easiest, and that puppy was going 145. But yeah, so but
very different from everything you've been playing since I've known you.
Yep, it's 30 miles of driving. I was sore, man. My jaw trying to hold on to the accelerator, and that was really fun. That was really, really fun, and I should practice more at that and do more of that. But that was a blast and a half.
Nice. I saw you playing that.
I mowed the lawn too. I should. Someone in the comments said, did you get are you driving the Lotus or the Husqvarna? Like both. It was both.
Nice.
So that's what I've been playing.
All right. So let's get on to our main topic, which is the Roberto Chiavini games.
Mm-hmm. Now for insider stuff, I can't see you at this point. So.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so basically, what are Roberto Chiavini games, Ron? Why don't you explain what they are?
Well, I don't know why I'm looking at the camera because I can't even see myself. Well, they are, I would say, quick to medium play games, pretty much with any sport you can imagine. He's obviously got the North American Big Four, basketball, football, baseball, and hockey. And being Italian, he obviously has soccer. But if you want to simulate Olympics gymnastics or Irish hurling, taping this on St. Patrick's Day, or Australian rules football, or track and field, or swimming, or curling, Roberto has got a game for you. And they're very easy to learn. They're a heck of a lot of fun. They require a lot of imagination. The auto racing game is one of my favorites to play regardless of that. You can play a game in about a minute. And I think the full play soccer game takes maybe about a half hour, 45 minutes. But the results are realistic. They're very fun to do. And again, it is why we do cards and dice. They truly allow you to build your imagination.
Yeah. So yeah, they're mostly quick play style games. The good thing is they're all kind of in the same vein. So if you've played one or two of his games, the others should make a lot of sense.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a good thing about that. He's got a website. It's RobertoChiaviniGames.com, and that's
ChiaVini.
Yeah, Roberto Chiavini, ChiaVini Games.com. And from there, there's a whole list of games available. Now, these are all PDFs, okay, that are sent to you via email. So he doesn't do any printing and shipping, so you get the PDFs. And just to give you an idea what he's got, as Ron talked about, he has a lot of complete Olympic sets, summer and winter games. I think he started back in the 1920s and he's up to 1960.
He went back to the first modern Olympics in 1896.
Okay, so yes, 1896 all the way up to it's pretty close to the 60s now. So he's almost got them all done. There's American football, Australian football, as you mentioned. He's got the baseball and the hockey. He's also got golf and tennis. I've played some of the tennis. I've really liked some of the tennis. I've enjoyed that. Bowling, auto racing, archery. I mean, he's got all these things that you can play. Handball, lacrosse, motorbike stuff. So he has all kind of very, very different games than you'd see out there in, the major four, let's say. So if you got a hankering for something, or if you have a certain connection to a certain sport or a season, that's what you want to check out. And they're all fun and easy to play. And I know I've streamed a lot of the hockey, the Kill the Power Play. And in fact, I'm setting up to play 1960 Squaw Valley Olympics. I want to play that out in its entirety to see if the USA can come out on top again with the gold medal.
That's the original Miracle on Ice.
Mm-hmm.
It's a forgotten Miracle on Ice.
Yep, it is. And so that's what I'm going to be setting up and playing. And on his Facebook group, Roberto Chiavini's Games on the Facebook group, you pointed this out. I missed it, but somebody back in August put up a nice table.
Yes,
that will help you determine your final rating. So this is a lot of times it's an offense compared to defense, and you got to get a rating. And somebody did a table that does it automatically. So you just look. It's like you go like N and then O and there it is. There's your number, and it saves a lot of time aside from trying to figure it out yourself. So I downloaded that and printed that out, so I have that ready to go. So that's where you can find the games on the website. There you can also find it over at sportsreplays.net. I think he has a page over there on sportsreplays.net.
Yes, sportsreplays.net/Roberto.
Okay, so you can find him there as well. A few places to go find his game. And again, you just need to email him with what you want to get, and then everything is done through PayPal using his email address. Okay, so we did ask him some questions, and this was actually last summer, and some of these questions have been updated in the whole bit. But I will ask the questions, and Ron will give Roberto's answer. And so we'll kind of do a quasi interview here of what he talked about. Alrighty, so Roberto, what were some of the early games you played?
I started serious gaming during my early teens in the late 70s with some war games. In particular, a few SBI titles, Normandy and Sicily, and a few international team ones, Okinawa, Yorktown. They were Italian war games. Roberto, by the way, is from Italy, with great graphics and components. We're talking board games here, but horrible rules that made most of them almost unplayable. Sport games came later. During the late 80s, during my college years, I played Status Pro basketball and football, Stratomatic basketball. How the heck did that get over to Italy? And March Madness. In the 90s, I bought and played a couple of the Lamborn games. And to butt in here, Lamborn is a UK card and dice manufacturer, and they do athletics and cricket and all that. Soccer, too. Dedicated to rugby and soccer.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay. All right, next question. What got you into making games?
My first design was a game on Gettysburg, handmade in the late 80s. I always had a great passion for the American Civil War. I don't really know why, to tell the truth. Then I started designing better war games in the early 2000s with a graphic help from a good friend. At the time, I was the co-owner of a game store, Stratagemma, one of the oldest wargaming and role-playing stores in Italy, founded in 1988, by the way. I worked there for a dozen years. Then, in 2007, I left and started a new life. I designed a lot of war games during the late 2000s, and then I started to design sports role-playing games 2, with a couple of soccer statistically based titles, now both out of print.
It's kind of funny, Ron, that some of the game developers we've talked to started off making war games. Or playing them.
Wasn't Lon a war gamer too?
Yeah, he was one that I'm thinking of, and I think there was another too that either
Joe Bryant, I think, talked about war games too. I think it's just an easy, once you can figure, this is me talking, not Roberto, once you can kind of figure out how to do one, I think the other kind of goes hand in hand.
Probably.
That's
Yeah.
just my personal
Yeah.
thought.
All right, continue on with the interview. Roberto, you and Dave both like the same kind of music. What is that kind of music?
You talk about heavy metal music, I presume. Smiley face. Well, I like different kinds of music, to be true, but heavy metal was a genre I liked most during the late 80s and early 90s when I went to a few concerts. And the last few years, I wrote the lyrics for several songs from my brother's band, Project Evil.
That's cool.
They've done only one album, but for the moment, with COVID stopping them in the middle of a second release, hopefully only postponed. One of the greatest emotions of my entire life was when during a concert, I got a round of applause from the crowd, not so big to be honest, some dozens of people, when the singer of the band told them that I was there inside, and the singer thanked me for those lyrics that are in English, even if the band is an Italian one.
Oh, that's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
Okay. What got you into writing fiction?
I don't really write fiction. I write historical essays or, before them, books on movies. Mostly science fiction or horror, one of my other passions. My first published book, a sort of encyclopedia of fantastic literature and movie characters, such as Peter Pan or Harry Potter, was in 1996. Since then, I've published around 15 books, and I'll interject as myself here. He just came out with another one. Won half a dozen prizes in the field, and in the last few years, I've started writing about military history, leaving the fantastic, I guess we would call, now I just lost the word, fantasy, I think is what you and I would call it.
Okay.
To just a few articles and some miscellaneous books.
Okay. Next, did you play any sports growing up?
Several ones, but only basketball after ending school, and just for fun. During school, I played a lot of volleyball, and I was more than a decent runner, half distances, 1,500 to 3,000 meters, and I also played a lot of soccer in my youth, but nothing on any serious level.
Okay. What was the idea behind creating games for really obscure, indifferent sports?
Most of the obscure sports I try to recreate in my games are very abstract, and I made them to try to give players out there the most widest possible range of simulations for events like the Olympics. I tried to fill a void in the field, sometimes with good results, sometimes fill in a space with nothing particularly interesting. I'm honest.
Okay. And let's see here. Is there one game you'd never thought you'd make but did?
Several, to tell the truth. Curling, Speedway, which is like moped racing, but you do it for points as opposed to who crosses the line first. Polo, darts, and many more.
How has that been received by the gaming community?
My games got some good reviews, depending on the period of time and the occasion of the review. I think that in some cases are considered more than they really are, while a few games I really like my tennis games or Tika Taka soccer, don't get the attention they probably deserve.
Okay. Let's see. Next question here is, what is your best-selling or most popular game?
I don't have a real bestseller. A few of my games get some decent sales when you guys or others talk about them, but I sell probably 10 copies or so of single titles plus a bunch of seasons. Not many more. Anyway, my Olympic sports are probably my best sellers, in particular the swimming and the athletics, also the boxing game. Other than those, probably Daring Racers F1 is a solid long seller. Also, my Heroes of the Road Cycling Grand Tour game is a very good one. And those, I should say, as I'm talking as Ron now, or, let's say the Tour de France, he's got a full stage for every stage of the race. So that one is not a quick play game.
So it sounds like his racing games do quite well.
His cycling games are much longer term. It would be not 15, 20 minutes. The Daring Racers F1 is an incredible game.
Yeah, you like that. You play that a lot.
I do.
Yeah. Is there a game you'd love us to try out?
Tika Taka Soccer, Heroes of the Road Cycling, any Unforgiven Sunday, which is his NFL game, head-to-head tennis. They are my most complicated games, still very easy compared to the field of sport gaming. I know, and probably deserve a try. I know I've played head-to-head tennis, and that is, talking as Ron, that's a very good game.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very good game.
I like his tennis games. I have fun with those. Yeah. Let's see. How How much pineapple do you put on your pizza?
Now, I'm answering this as Roberto, okay? This is not Ron's personal answer because my name pops up. You can't put pineapple on pizza. Ron is right.
And this interview is over.
I'm Italian. We put a lot of different things on pizza, but not pineapple, exclamation point. The best pizza is simply tomatoes and mozzarella. We call that margherita pizza here in the States. Better if mozzarella di bufala. And I'm assuming from my Latin that would be buffalo milk mozzarella.
Wow, that's pretty incredible.
Yep.
Let's see. Do you continue to make new seasons for your games?
Sure, I'm producing more than a couple hundred different expansion sets for my game every month, so I surely do.
Yeah, and I can say that he was adding some more seasons to Kill the Power Play, which is a very fun quick play game.
He's pretty prolific.
Yeah, I do like that one there. Do you have any plans for any new games?
When I asked him this a while ago, was some other college sport games. I'm also tempted by a professional wrestling game, but I don't know. It should be very different from my other approaches to sport gaming, so I don't know. And since we did this interview, he is redoing all of the Olympic stuff, or a lot of the Olympic sports too. So he's been, like I said, I think we're up to 68 Mexico City. So the 72 winter and summer would be next.
Okay. Let me see. Do you have plans for any games that are not considered quick play?
Pro wrestling could be one. I've already done a few games that are not really quick play. Any Unforgiven Sunday, Tiki Taka Soccer, and Heroes of the Road Cycling are not really quick playing. So we're Winning 7 Water Polo, and This is Volley, which would be volleyball.
Okay. One thing in your games that I find pretty consistent and unique is you use a third dice in these games. Tell us more about the third dice option seen in many of your games.
Third die is sort of a trademark of my games, Dave. A random modifier that is not so random, and a better team has much more of a chance to activate it than a bad one. I thought of it because my first designs were too statistical only, and the fun part of the game, the intervention of luck, was almost missing. So I thought it would be something very easy to use that can give the possibility of a miracle of burnout. I don't know what that is. Or a miracle on ice without complicating things too much. I think that works well enough.
Yeah, the third dice comes in handy. And I've heard him talk about that, whereas, you don't necessarily have to use that if you don't want to.
And I have a trivia question or trivia thing here.
Okay.
Just a bit of sports trivia for the interview. The singer in my brother's band is none other than Gianni Apicino, the former Italian record holder in the pole vault during the early 90s, and famous for being the ex-husband of Fiona May and father of a rising long jumper here in Italy, Larissa Apicino, that is following the steps of her mother. And she jumped, the daughter jumped a 6.8 meters the other day. That's wow, close to 20 feet.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Second best achievement in the world last year, and she just turned, she'll be 21 in July. That's pretty good. I wonder if she's headed to Tokyo.
That I don't know. But it sounds like he's into like the that kind of stuff there with the the racing and the gymnastics and the things like that, and the track and field. That seems to be like his sweet spot there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. Yeah, and the racing, I think, is that's pretty universal. It may not be the same type of cars that we get into here, but everybody just loves going fast.
Yeah.
His skiing games are pretty good too.
I've seen you play some of those. Yeah.
Yeah. But I had the only one of those that I haven't done the cycling game because, again, I think with any of these kind of niche games, I think, you and I've talked about, there needs to be some sort of connection to whatever it is, or else it's just going to be numbers for you. Mm-hmm. But even, we've talked about this before. My dad, when he was alive, covered ski racing. So a lot of the skiing names are something that I know.
So you're familiar with that, yeah. Yeah,
I'm familiar with some of that. Or you might have had a runner or a figure skater, especially you down in Mass, a figure skater that grew up in the town next to you or something like that, where, I might want to recreate some of that. But they're all well thought out, and he's not afraid He's done a new sprint game, which is unrestrained bolts. I think he was working on that when we'd sent the questions last year. And we said, but you already have a good sprinting game out, Roberto. Why are we doing this again? And he broke it down into, let's say for the 100-meter race, he broke it down into 25-meter chunks, which again, on the surface it's a quick play game. The race itself is over in 9 seconds. You're going to take 20 minutes to resolve a 10-second race. But when I tried it out, each step you could see the picture of the race forming in your mind. The first 25 meters, everyone is within the same stride of each other. But by the time we get to 25 meters to go, there's definite separation. Mm-hmm. And by the time you get to 100, you could get, someone could get that last breath of inspiration or fall, and so those are the things. It's again, we talked about things that we don't necessarily think about in North America because skiing, track and field, Formula One, they're all niche type things. But when you play them, you get that feeling. You're like, oh, okay, I saw this in the Olympics. I kind of like how it works. And so it's not going to replace your main games on the tabletop, but
they're very fun. I enjoyed the tennis. I enjoyed the golf. I think I've done videos on those on my YouTube channel. I like how the accuracy is there, too, because remember, I think I did the first Hockey Olympics. Remember that was 1920 Antwerp or something?
1920. It was actually part of the Summer Olympics.
Okay. And the one game I rolled, it was the it was
Americans versus somebody who I'm surprised it skates.
I don't even know if they had skates back then. And the score in real life, I think it was like 29-0 the Americans. And when I rolled the dice for that game, my result was 29-0 Americans. It was whatever the score was. It was some ridiculous hockey number, and I hit it spot on when I rolled for that game. So
first Roberto game I did was using Central Athletics, which is his older version of the sprint games, and I did the 84 100 meters for the Met because I remember watching a lot of those Olympics because they were live, and there were no Soviets, so we had a pretty good chance of winning a lot of things. And with Carl Lewis, that was the year that Carl won the 100, the 200, and the long jump. A lot of different disciplines there. And so Carl didn't win my 100-meter race, but the time was spot on. It was exact. Not Carl's, Sam Good, or whoever it was that won the race. They never got the notoriety because he wasn't Carl Lewis.
Yeah.
Won it with the exact time. Like, oh, we got something here.
Yeah.
Because you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know. You're looking at these going, okay. And, all games are math. Every game that we play, whether it's Strat or Roberto's or Play.com, which uses different ways to get there, they're all math.
Yeah.
The math was right. And, okay, that sold me right then and there. So you were sending me up Sunday with the shootout helper, and you got me to be Sunday around before I could even say good morning, which is something you're good at, by the way. And I was reading off the same action card. I would flip it for like one result, but I would do the shooter scoring chance and assist on the same card.
Yeah, where they took the shot from, whether it was successful. Yeah.
And I was getting, I forget who I was playing, but I was getting absolutely hammered. It just, the fourth line kept scoring. Like I had 5 goals from the fourth line. I'm like, no, okay, yeah, I played enough of these to know that's okay. You got to take another look at it. But it was very, soured is the word you like to use. It was like, I've played this before. This isn't realistic at all. And you said, no, you do one card for each action. And when I did that, I got a much more realistic result. Doesn't matter, any team can win any given game. That wasn't what I was upset about. And so, again, we've done a show on first impressions and all that. So to bring that back to Roberto, my first impression of his game was, I get this.
Yeah.
I get this. And so that was an easy sell after that.
Yeah, they're very fun. Those games are really fun. So again, RobertoChiaviniGames.com or head over to sportsreplays.net/Roberto, and you can find all those games there. Send them an email, tell them what you want. and just say, hey, I'm looking for all this stuff here, and he'll work up a price for you. This price is on there, but he's always having specials and sales, so he'll be working with you if you want to get some of his games. And another one of these independent game developer creator type people that we're trying to support here on the channel. And and the thing is, we enjoy his games. It's not like we're just here doing, trying to, help him out. It's just, I enjoy his games. You've enjoyed his games, and he's got a good following with people. So it's one of these things, if you haven't tried out one of his games, give them a try. They're very inexpensive. A lot of them are only a few dollars to play. He gives you all the instructions and charts and everything you need with them. And once you figure out one of his games, they all kind of fall into place. So if you wanted to play...
They're all similar
very
in
similar
construct, but a heck of a lot of fun.
Yep, they are.
And to me, it really reminds me of watching Sports World, Wide World of Sports, CBS Sports Spectacular on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon in the middle of winter when there's nothing else on. And if you really want to, after your race or fight or whatever is done, pull up an episode of Solid Gold, Hee Haw, or Lawrence Welk on YouTube and berate yourself that you have to eat this whatever that you made for dinner. Just like when you're going, I gotta eat this. Yes, and you're watching Lawrence Welk with your grandmother. That's, you can laugh. That sort of thing that I know that I went through. I can't watch football. No, watching Lawrence Welk.
There you go. I got a question for you. Whose license plate here in the States used to read 1ANA2?
Oh, that had to be Lawrence Welk.
It was. One and a two.
Yeah,
that was a game in Trivia Pursuit, by the way. That was a question in Trivia Pursuit.
What? Wow. At least he had fun poking at himself.
And I got it right because as a kid in the early 70s, we would go visiting, just what kids wanted to do, right? We'd go over old people's houses, and they would have Lawrence Welk on, and that's just what us kids wanted to watch, right? This is great, isn't it? We're visiting, air quotes. Yeah, this is great. I wouldn't want to be home playing any of my hockey games.
Ronnie, you got to sit and watch cartoons and basketball all day. It's time for the grown-ups to watch what they want to watch. Yeah. And my mother, of course, later on.
More bubbles. We need more bubbles.
The last thing she wanted to watch was the Lennon sisters, But yes. Yeah, Ronnie, you got to watch baseball all day. It's time for us to watch what we want to watch. Yeah,
there we go. Thanks, all right, let's wrap up episode 80, shall we? This has been episode 80 of the Digital to Dice podcast. We talked about...
The Jerry Rice episode.
Okay. We talked about Roberto Chiavini games. We talked about what they are, where you can find them, and how much fun you can have playing some quick play games. Ways to get a hold of us. digitaltodice.com is our website where we put all the shows. 978-751-DICE is how you can get a hold of us with a text. digitaltodice@yahoo.com is the email, and over on facebook.com/group/digitaltodice. And boy, I forget how many members we have now, Ron, but wow.
Over 650.
Yeah, I remember when we hit 200, we were all excited, And so, yeah, definitely head over there. So, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
I'm good.
Have you been outside? It's been nice. Have you been outside?
Yes. Yeah, we went out this morning. It's nice to get some sun.
We had a day here. It was 70 degrees. And then 2 days later, it was 13.
We had 60 last Thursday, and by Saturday morning, it was 8.
Yeah, we've had some fluctuating temperatures out here.
I love fall spring.
I know, they get us all excited, and then they take it away. Talk to everybody later.
Bye-bye.